The Smashing Machine is a sports drama taking place in the late 90s. It follows Mark Kerr, played by Dwayne Johnson. He's a UFC fighter who becomes a big star, but he's unfortunately plagued by addiction. On top of that, he's struggling with his relationship with Dawn, played by Emily Blunt, who feels pushed aside by his career and is looking for some stability. So this movie is more of a relationship drama than it is a sports film. It has some fighting in it, but it is much more focused on Mark and Dawn's relationship. It is very much a story about compromise. It's about the ways our partners tend to force us to either make exceptions to the things that make us comfortable in our relationships, or stick to our guns, potentially putting the relationship at risk. Both Mark and Dawn are flawed in the ways they handle things. Mark tends to let his career overshadow Dawn's place in his life. He often gives her the leftover bits of himself and treats her more like a pet than a partner. And although Dawn's desire to be recognized as an important part of his life seems pretty reasonable, she's unfortunately a bit of a loose cannon and can behave pretty poorly. In just about each case, neither of them are capable of letting anything go. This is the framework of what makes a solid relationship drama, the fact that neither of them is totally in the right or wrong. They are both right sometimes, and then other times they are insufferable pricks. Mark's personal struggles have some overlap with his UFC career. He loves the glory of standing victorious in the ring. He's very vocal about the fact that he loves winning. It's a high, and he just needs to keep chasing the dragon. This speaks to his personality on a couple levels. It ripples over into his relationship a bit, but also his struggles with substances, which is quite a cliche in the biopic genre, but the movie navigates that well. The drugs are not the biggest obstacle in his life. That would actually be his relationship with Dawn. Their dynamic is interesting because of their unique personalities. Despite being so big and shredded, Mark has a very tender personality. He's very soft in the way that he speaks to others, except for Dawn sometimes. His soft personality really influences the viewing angle. Despite being this big monster of a man, he very rarely comes off as a threat. But on the flip side, Dawn's tendency to go up and down a lot actually make her the catalyst for a lot of the tension in the movie, because you never really know what things she'll just brush off and what will send her over the edge. So the movie is pretty tense during their private time, but it's otherwise actually pretty understated. That's partly because of Mark's personality, but also because of the visuals. It's got a documentary style vibe through the handheld cinematography and the grainy film look. It was mostly shot on 16mm film. Even some VHS footage was shot for this production. It very much strays away from being cinematic and instead just wants you to be a fly on the wall. Even the music kind of contributes to that. It's got a lot of 80s and 90s tunes and even some soft jazz. Being about a UFC fighter, you might expect it to be filled with intense rock music coupled with immersive cinematography. The movie really subverts the expectations you might have if you had just read the synopsis alone and not seen any of the trailers. And speaking of subverting expectations, Dwayne Johnson gives his best performance to date here by a long shot. Unlike the roles that he's known for, this is a real performance, and it's definitely good. That said, despite the fact that some people will try to say prosthetics are cheating when it comes to a good performance, in this case, I would actually call it an inhibitor. On one hand, yes, in order for us to really fully embrace this performance, Dwayne Johnson evidently needed to look much less like Dwayne Johnson. But on the other hand, I've heard it said that acting is really in the eyes and eyebrows, and not being able to move his eyebrows much because of the prosthetics was actually holding him back a little bit. Don't get me wrong, it's a great performance and he really shines in a couple scenes, but there are several scenes where his lack of facial expressions made him seem a bit plastic. It works in the scenes where he struggles with substances, but not so much for the rest of the movie. All things considered, and I can't believe I'm saying this, we might see Dwayne at the Oscars. I'm not sure that he would win because this season has so many great actors with movies coming out, and it's a bit too early to say, but this is certainly in the wheelhouse of Oscar-nominated performances. I would also love to see Emily Blunt there as well because she really is a wonderful actress, and this role just further proves that. She's such an important part of the film, and she fully delivers in the scenes where she needs to dial the intensity all the way up. So I'd really like to see her get the recognition she deserves. So jumping into the things that were not amazing, this movie's overall grand narrative is not very focused. It's very much about compromise and letting things go, whether that be in relationships or Mark's career. But those threads, among a few extras thrown in there, feel pretty disjointed. It also flirts with things like substance abuse, being friends with your opponent, and the origins of UFC. Every biopic needs a clear grand narrative, and this one just isn't clear at all. Like, even the note that it ends on in the film's epilogue goes full circle to a concept that was only loosely flirted with rather than tying a bow on the actual conflict. Again, it is very much a relationship drama that is far and away the thing that is carrying the movie, and it kind of just forgets that in the most climactic moments. Like, the third act focuses more on the big fight, which is very typical for a sports film, but it was a big shift in trajectory because leading up to that, it was mostly a romance drama. There's a chunk of time between the second and third acts where Dawn is actually just totally absent, and this felt like a big narrative lull because one of the big players here took a bench. It's also frustrating that whenever the two of them reunite, we don't actually get to see them hash anything out. The movie ropes you into their problems and then doesn't give you any insight on how they are resolved. So in the end, the movie did not feel like it properly tied a bow on the core conflicts, but it was still pretty captivating through these very real relationship issues and these great character portrayals. At the very least, I'm sure a lot of people will enjoy following this character. If nothing else, the movie at least does a good job of humanizing this character that I think most people would not see the vulnerability in. So overall, the movie is decent. It's well performed and intimate, but it comes up a little bit short from lacking a clear grand narrative. It's worth checking out if you're interested in a romance drama with great performances, but I wouldn't get too excited if you want a traditional sports film. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help this channel grow. I will see you next week with a review of something. Tron Ares, that's what I'm seeing next week. Bye.